The massive Imperial scout ship drifted silently at the edge of Earth's solar system, its dark hull barely visible against the backdrop of endless space. Inside the vessel's command center, Admiral Marcus stood with his hands clasped behind his back, his tall figure casting a long shadow across the holographic display of Earth's defensive systems. "This is what they call protection?" he asked, his voice filled with amusement. The Admiral's finger traced the outline of Earth's orbital platforms, mere dots floating around the blue planet. Their entire defensive network consists of barely 50 platforms, and only one warship. The ship's tactical officer, Lieutenant Reed, nodded as he pulled up more detailed scans. "Yes, Admiral. Our long-range sensors confirm that their primary warship, designated as EDS Sentinel, appears to be a standard patrol vessel. Their orbital platforms show minimal power signatures, suggesting outdated weapon systems." Admiral Marcus couldn't help but smile. In his 30 years of expanding the Empire's territory, he had never seen such an apparently weak defense system for a planet of this size. Earth, despite its rich resources and strategic location, seemed to be practically defenseless against the might of the Imperial fleet. "Show me their communication networks," Marcus commanded, his gray uniform reflecting the blue glow of the holographic displays. The tactical display shifted, revealing a basic network of satellites and transmission stations. Primitive, they're still using radio waves for half their communications. Deep within Earth's heavily fortified mountain command center, Commander James Miller watched his own screens with intense focus. The Empire's scout ships weren't as stealthy as they thought. Earth's quantum detection grid had picked them up the moment they entered the Kuiper Belt, but Miller's orders were clear. Let them look, let them judge, let them underestimate. "Sir," his assistant reported, "they're scanning our defense platforms again. Should we activate the masking protocols?" Miller shook his head, taking a sip from his coffee mug. "No. Let them see exactly what we want them to see. How's the Sentinel's position?" Captain Hayes reports all systems nominal. The Sentinel remains in position behind Mars, completely hidden from their scans. Back on the Imperial scout ship, Admiral Marcus called his command staff together for their final assessment. The holographic table between them displayed a complete tactical analysis of Earth's defenses. "My fellow officers," Marcus began, his voice echoing in the metallic chamber, "we have found our next conquest. Earth's defenses are laughably primitive. Their orbital platforms are scattered inefficiently. Their single warship is unremarkable, and their ground-based weapons can't even reach our lower orbit positions." The officers nodded in agreement, some already discussing how they would divide Earth's resources. None of them noticed the slight smile on Lieutenant Reed's face when he mentioned the strange energy readings his sensors had briefly detected. "I will inform the Emperor that we can proceed with minimal forces," Marcus continued. 200 ships should be more than enough, though we probably need only 50. We'll arrive in force, deliver our ultimatum, and add another jewel to the Empire's crown." As the scout ship turned to leave the solar system, Commander Miller received confirmation that the Empire had taken the bait. He stood up from his command chair and walked to the giant window overlooking the underground hangar where rows of advanced fighters sat ready, hidden from the Empire's prying eyes. "Send word to all commands," Miller ordered. "Operation Paper Tiger is proceeding as planned. Tell Captain Hayes she's clear to begin Phase 2 preparations." He paused, looking at the tactical display showing the departing Imperial scout ship. "And someone please make sure our primitive defense platforms keep broadcasting those false power signatures. We wouldn't want the Empire to figure out what they really are." The Empire had made their assessment. Earth was weak, primitive, and ripe for conquest. And that was exactly what Earth wanted them to think. In the darkness of space, behind the red planet Mars, the EDS Sentinel floated silently. Inside her bridge, Captain Hayes watched the Imperial scout ship leave, her hand resting on a console that controlled systems far more advanced than anything the Empire had ever encountered. "They took the bait," she whispered. "Now we wait." 3 weeks after the scout ship's departure, a single Imperial diplomatic vessel entered Earth's solar system. Its sleek, silver hull gleamed in the sunlight as it approached Earth's orbit, flanked by 2 smaller escort ships. The vessel's arrival was broadcast on every television and communication device across Earth, but the panic that the Empire expected never came. Inside the United Nations Defense Chamber in Geneva, Commander Miller stood before the assembled world leaders. The massive screen behind him showed the approaching Imperial ships. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, his voice steady, "everything is proceeding according to plan. Our orbital platforms are maintaining their primitive power signatures, and Captain Hayes reports the Sentinel remains undetected behind Mars." A nervous murmur spread through the chamber. One of the leaders stood up. "And you're certain their sensors can't detect our underground bases?" Miller nodded. "The quantum shielding is working perfectly. As far as they know, we're just a planet with a few scattered military bases and some outdated orbital platforms." The Imperial diplomatic vessel settled into orbit, and a transmission reached Earth's communication centers. Admiral Marcus's holographic image appeared before the UN Assembly, his expression a mixture of superiority and false sympathy. "People of Earth," he began, his voice echoing through the chamber, "the Galactic Empire offers you a chance to join our glorious civilization. Submit to Imperial rule, and we will guide your primitive species into a new age of prosperity." Commander Miller stepped forward, playing his role perfectly. He wrung his hands nervously and spoke with a carefully practiced tremor in his voice. "Admiral, this is quite sudden. We are a peaceful planet. Surely we can discuss this." Marcus smiled condescendingly. "Of course. The Empire is nothing if not generous. You have 48 hours to submit to our authority. If you refuse," he let the threat hang in the air. After the transmission ended, the chamber erupted in staged arguments and discussions. Hidden cameras transmitted the scene directly to the Imperial vessel, showing exactly what they expected to see: a primitive civilization in panic. Meanwhile, deep in the Martian shadow, Captain Hayes and her crew on the EDS Sentinel continued their preparations. The ship's advanced systems hummed quietly as they monitored Imperial communications. "They're buying it," Hayes said, watching the diplomatic vessel's movements on her quantum-enhanced display. "Their sensors are focused entirely on Earth's visible defenses. They haven't even bothered to do a deep scan of Mars." Her second-in-command, Lieutenant Parker, checked the ship's stealth systems. "Mirror field holding steady, Captain. We're completely invisible to their technology. Should we begin charging the main systems?" Hayes shook her head. "Not yet. Let them think they've won first." She pulled up a secure communication channel to Earth. "Commander Miller, how are things proceeding on your end?" Miller's voice came through clearly, despite the massive distance. "Perfect. The Empire's observers are recording everything. They're seeing exactly what we want them to see: a frightened planetary government arguing about surrender." In Earth orbit, Admiral Marcus watched the planet's reactions with growing satisfaction. His tactical officer reported increased activity around Earth's military bases, which he interpreted as panic and preparation for a hopeless defense. "Look at them scramble," Marcus said, watching the movements on his display. "Their orbital platforms are barely at 30% power. They can't even maintain basic defense systems." He turned to his communication officer. "Send word to the fleet. Tell them to begin their approach. We'll arrive just as their deadline expires." Little did he know that beneath the peaceful-looking surface of Earth's moon, thousands of advanced fighters sat ready in hidden hangars. Inside mountains and under oceans, plasma cannons and quantum weapons waited silently. And in the shadow of Mars, the most advanced warship humanity had ever built watched and waited for the perfect moment to reveal Earth's true power. The trap was nearly ready. All that remained was for the Empire to spring it. The 48-hour deadline was about to expire. In the darkness of space, 200 Imperial warships emerged from faster-than-light travel, their massive hulls blocking out the distant stars. Admiral Marcus stood proudly on his flagship's bridge, watching as his fleet spread out in attack formation around Earth. "Look at their pathetic defenses," Marcus said, pointing at Earth's orbital platforms. "They're not even at full power. It seems they've accepted their fate." He turned to his crew with a smile. "Begin broadcasting on all frequencies. Let them see their doom approaching." On Earth, Commander Miller watched the Imperial fleet's arrival from his underground command center. He pressed a button on his console, sending a pre-arranged signal to all Earth's hidden forces. "Start the show," he ordered quietly. Above the planet, Earth's orbital platforms began to spark and flicker. Warning lights flashed across their surfaces, and their power readings dropped even lower than before. "Admiral," an Imperial officer called out excitedly, "their defense platforms appear to be malfunctioning. They're losing power across the entire network." Marcus laughed loudly. As expected from such primitive technology, they can't even keep their defenses running. He straightened his uniform. "Launch our first wave of fighters. Let's give them a small demonstration of Imperial power." 1,000 Imperial fighters poured out from the larger ships, their engines glowing bright against the black of space. They formed perfect attack formations, heading toward Earth's seemingly defenseless orbital platforms. In the shadow of Mars, Captain Hayes watched the Imperial fleet's movement on the Sentinel's advanced displays. "They're positioning exactly as predicted," she reported to Earth Command. "Their formation leaves them completely vulnerable to our trap." Miller's voice came through clearly. "Understood, Captain. Hold position until they commit their full force. Let them think they've won." The Imperial fighters reached the first orbital platform. They fired warning shots, expecting to destroy it easily. Their weapons passed straight through, causing no damage. "Admiral," the tactical officer shouted, confusion in his voice. "Our weapons, they're having no effect." "Impossible," Marcus growled. "Launch the main assault force. Show these primitives the true power of the Empire." More fighters launched from the Imperial ships, along with troop transports and bombardment vessels. The entire fleet moved closer to Earth, their weapons charging for a full attack. Deep underground, Miller watched the enemy fleet's approach on his quantum displays. He turned to his communications officer. "Send the signal to all platforms. Authorization code: Paper Tiger." In space, the malfunctioning orbital platforms suddenly stopped flickering. The Empire's sensors still showed them at minimal power, but something was changing. The hologram projectors that had made them appear primitive and weak began to shut down, revealing their true nature. On the Imperial flagship, alarms started blaring. "Admiral," the sensor officer shouted, "new energy signatures detected. The platforms, they're not what we thought." Marcus rushed to the tactical display, his face pale. "What do you mean? Explain." "Sir, the platforms we were scanning, they were decoys, holograms. The real platforms were cloaked behind them. And their power readings," the officer's voice trembled, "they're higher than anything we've ever seen." Around Earth, 50 real defense platforms emerged from their perfect camouflage. Their sleek, advanced designs were nothing like the primitive decoys the Empire had been monitoring. Panels opened along their sides, revealing rows of quantum-linked weapon systems. Behind Mars, Captain Hayes stood up from her command chair. "Sentinel crew, battle stations. The Empire has committed their forces. Time to show them what one Earth warship can really do." Admiral Marcus stared in horror as his tactical display updated, showing the true power of Earth's defenses. His perfectly planned attack had just turned into something very different. The trap was sprung. Now the real battle would begin. Admiral Marcus watched in stunned silence as Earth's true defense platforms powered up. The primitive-looking satellites he had laughed at just minutes ago were gone, replaced by sleek, deadly weapons of war. Their silver hulls seemed to drink in the sunlight, and their weapon ports glowed with an energy his sensors couldn't even measure. "Get me a reading on those platforms," he shouted, his voice shaking with anger and fear. "What kind of weapons are they carrying?" The tactical officer's hands flew across his console. "Sir, I can't tell. Their energy signatures don't match anything in our database. The power readings are off the scale." On Earth, Commander Miller stood calmly in his command center, watching the Imperial fleet's confusion with satisfaction. "Launch Phase 2, he ordered. "Show them what Earth can really do." The defense platforms moved in perfect synchronization, their positions forming a complex geometric pattern around the planet. Energy began to flow between them, creating a web of bright blue lines that connected each platform to its neighbors. "What are they doing?" Marcus demanded, watching the energy web form around Earth. His answer came seconds later when one of his fighters tried to fly through the energy grid. Instead of passing through, the fighter's weapon systems suddenly shut down. Then its engines died. Then every system on the small ship went dark. The Empire watched in horror as hundreds of their fighters began to lose power, caught in Earth's energy web like insects in a spider's trap. Quantum-linked defense grid activated. Miller reported to all Earth forces. "Captain Hayes, you're clear to proceed. Show them what the Sentinel can do." From behind Mars, the Earth defense ship Sentinel finally revealed itself. But this was no simple patrol vessel. The ship that emerged into view was unlike anything the Empire had ever seen. Its hull seemed to shift and change as it moved, making it hard to focus on, like trying to watch a mirage in the desert. "By the stars," breathed Lieutenant Reed on the Imperial flagship. "Sir, that ship, it's not what our scouts reported. It's at least 3 times larger, and its weapon systems." "Fire!" Marcus screamed. "All ships, open fire on that vessel. Destroy it." 100 Imperial warships turned their guns on the Sentinel. Energy beams and plasma torpedoes streaked across space toward the Earth vessel. Captain Hayes stood calmly on her bridge, watching the incoming fire. "Mirror field at full power," she ordered. "Let's show them how we deal with bullies in the solar system." The space around the Sentinel shimmed like heat waves rising from hot pavement. When the Imperial weapons reached the ship, something impossible happened. Instead of exploding against the hull, the energy beams and torpedoes curved around the ship, following the distorted space, and shot back toward the Imperial fleet. "Incoming fire," the Imperial tactical officer shouted. It's our own weapons." The Imperial fleet scattered in panic as their own attacks came back at them. 3 destroyers exploded as they were hit by their own torpedoes. The perfectly organized attack formation broke apart into chaos. From his command center, Miller watched with pride as the Sentinel began to move through the Imperial fleet like a knife through butter. The ship's advanced AI targeting systems identified and disabled key enemy vessels with surgical precision, while its mirror field technology made it practically invulnerable. "Send the message to all Imperial forces," Miller commanded. His voice was firm and confident. "This is Earth's formal response to your ultimatum. We do not surrender, we do not bow, and we are not primitive." Admiral Marcus stared at his tactical displays in disbelief. His mighty fleet was being torn apart by a single Earth ship and a network of defense platforms he had dismissed as primitive just hours ago. And based on his sensors, Earth's forces were just getting started. The revelation was complete. Now the real battle for survival would begin. Not Earth's survival, but the Empire's. Captain Hayes stood at the center of the Sentinel's bridge, her hands resting lightly on the tactical control panel. Around her, the bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency as holographic displays showed the positions of every Imperial ship. "Target their command and control ships first," Hayes ordered. "Let's see how well they fight when they can't coordinate their attacks." The Sentinel moved with impossible grace for a ship of its size. Its mirror field technology bent both light and space around it, making it appear to be in several places at once. Imperial gunners found their targeting computers unable to lock onto the Earth vessel as it weaved between their ships. "How are they moving like that?" Admiral Marcus demanded, watching the Sentinel slip past his fleet's defenses. "No ship that size should be able to maneuver that way." The Sentinel's first real attack came without warning. A pulse of blue energy shot from its bow, spreading out in a wide cone. Every Imperial ship caught in the blast suddenly lost their shield systems. Multiple ships reporting shield failures. Reed shouted from his tactical station. "They're completely defenseless." Hayes touched another control on her panel. "Activate the eye targeting matrix. Show them what precision really means." Dozens of small ports opened along the Sentinel's hull, revealing what looked like tiny silver spheres. These spheres shot out into space, each one targeting a specific Imperial ship. They moved faster than any missile, ignoring shields and armor to attach themselves to enemy engine sections. "What are those devices?" Marcus watched in horror as the spheres attached to his ships. Moments later, engine after engine began to shut down, leaving Imperial ships drifting helplessly in space. On the Sentinel's bridge, the ship's AI spoke in a calm voice. "Quantum disruptors deployed. Enemy engine systems successfully targeted. 67 ships currently disabled." Hayes nodded with satisfaction. "Send the warning to any disabled ships. They can still activate their emergency life support and escape pods. We're not here for destruction. Just surrender." The remaining Imperial ships tried to coordinate a counterattack. Over 100 vessels turned their guns on the Sentinel's last known position, but the Earth ship was already gone, appearing suddenly behind their formation. "Let's show them why quality beats quantity," Hayes said. "Activate the Cascade Resonance System." The space around the Sentinel began to ripple like water. A wave of energy pulsed outward, touching ship after ship in the Imperial fleet. Where it passed, weapons systems simply stopped working, their power cores going into automatic shutdown. From his command center on Earth, Miller watched the battle with pride. The Sentinel was proving every bit as effective as their simulations had predicted. "Status report on the quantum defense grid," he asked. "Working perfectly, sir," his tactical officer replied. "Any Imperial ship that tries to escape gets caught in the web. We've already captured 300 fighters and 20 capital ships." Back on the Imperial flagship, Marcus watched his mighty fleet being systematically disabled by a single Earth vessel. Ships that had conquered dozens of worlds were now floating helplessly in space, their weapons and engines shut down by technology they couldn't even understand. "Sir," Reed reported, his voice shaking, "we're getting surrender signals from multiple ships. The battle group commanders, they're requesting permission to stand down." The Sentinel continued its graceful dance through space, its mirror field shimmering as it moved. Every maneuver was precise, every attack calculated for maximum effect with minimal loss of life. This wasn't just a display of superior firepower. It was a demonstration of how far ahead Earth's technology truly was. Captain Hayes looked at her tactical display, now showing more disabled Imperial ships than active ones. "Send the message to all Imperial forces one more time," she ordered. "The choice is simple. Surrender now, or watch the rest of your fleet join them in powerless drift." The battle wasn't over, but its outcome was now certain. Earth's single warship had just changed the balance of power in the galaxy forever. Admiral Marcus stared at his tactical display as it showed more and more of his ships going dark. The mighty Imperial fleet that had arrived with such confidence was now scattered across space, most vessels either disabled or surrendering. His flagship remained one of the few ships still fully operational, but he knew that wouldn't last long. "Sir," Lieutenant Reed reported quietly, "we've lost contact with the entire Western battle group. The Earth ship's quantum interference is blocking all our communications." Marcus slammed his fist on his command chair. "Impossible. We are the Imperial fleet. We cannot be defeated by a single ship and some orbital platforms." On the Sentinel's bridge, Captain Hayes watched the Imperial flagship's desperate movements. "They're still not surrendering," she noted. "Time to end this. Target their command and control systems only. Let's show them what precise targeting really means." The Sentinel's AI responded immediately, calculating firing solution. "Target locked on Imperial flagship's communication array. shield generators, and weapon systems, avoiding all crew quarters and life support sections. Hayes nodded. Fire when ready. The Sentinel fired 3 quick pulses of energy, each one a different color. The first, a bright blue beam, struck the Imperial flagship shields and shattered them like glass. The second, a green pulse, disabled every weapon on the massive ship. The third, a white flash, knocked out their communications and engines. Inside his flagship, Marcus watched in horror as system after system went dark. What kind of weapons are these?" he demanded. Reed checked his failing sensors. "Sir, they're using technology we've never seen before. They're not destroying our systems. They're just turning them off, like they understand our technology better than we do." From Earth's command center, Miller watched the Imperial flagship's power levels drop to minimal levels. "Send the final message," he ordered. "Let's end this without any more fighting." The message reached every remaining Imperial ship simultaneously, broadcast through Earth's quantum communication network that the Empire couldn't block. "This is Earth Command to all Imperial forces. Your fleet is disabled. Your flagship is powerless. Your communications are cut off. You have 2 choices: surrender and live, or continue fighting and drift in space. We will guarantee the safety and fair treatment of all crew members who surrender. You have 5 minutes to decide." On the Imperial flagship's bridge, Reed turned to Marcus. "Sir, we're receiving surrender signals from every remaining active ship in the fleet. We're the only ones still holding out." Marcus stood silently, watching Earth's defense platforms maintaining their perfect formation, the quantum energy web still sparkling between them. The Sentinel hung in space before his ship, its mirror field making it look like a piece of space itself had come alive. "Sir," Reed said softly, "we have to surrender. Look at the sensor logs. Every shot they fired was precisely targeted to disable, not destroy. They could have wiped us out at any time, but they chose not to. They've shown more honor in victory than we did in our attack." Finally, Marcus's shoulders slumped. Send the surrender signal," he ordered, his voice heavy with defeat. "To all Imperial forces, this is Admiral Marcus. Stand down all weapons. Power down all offensive systems. Surrender to Earth authorities." The Sentinel moved closer to the Imperial flagship, its mirror field shimming in the sunlight. Captain Hayes opened a direct channel to Marcus's bridge. "Admiral, this is Captain Hayes of the EDS Sentinel. We're sending shuttlecraft to begin evacuating your crew. Your men will be treated with respect." As the Earth shuttles approached his ship, Marcus watched the Sentinel keeping its silent guard. "All this time," he said quietly, "we thought we were the most advanced civilization in the galaxy. We thought Earth was primitive, weak. But we were the primitive ones, weren't we?" The Empire's fall was complete. Earth had not just won a battle. They had changed the galaxy's balance of power forever, and they had done it with a single ship. 1 month after the battle, the grand meeting hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with nervous energy. Representatives from 100 alien civilizations watched as Earth's delegation entered the chamber. Commander Miller led the group, with Captain Hayes following close behind. The Sentinel hung visible in orbit above the Council world, a quiet reminder of Earth's power. At the center of the chamber, Admiral Marcus stood before the Council, his formal uniform replaced by simpler clothing. "I speak now not as an Imperial commander," he began, his voice carrying across the silent room, "but as someone who has learned a powerful lesson. We called Earth primitive. We laughed at their defenses. We were wrong." The Council leader, a tall being with silvery skin, leaned forward. "Tell us, Admiral, what did you learn from this defeat?" Marcus looked at the Earth delegation. "We learned that advancement isn't measured by the size of your fleet or the number of worlds you control. Earth had 1 ship, but that ship carried technology we couldn't even understand. They could have destroyed us all, but they chose to disable our ships instead. They showed mercy when we had shown none. Commander Miller stepped forward to address the council. Earth has remained quiet in galactic affairs until now, watching and learning. We developed our technology in secret, knowing that someday we would need to defend ourselves. The Empire's attack proved we were right to be cautious. He pressed a button on his wrist device, and a hologram appeared in the center of the chamber. It showed the Sentinel's mirror field technology and quantum defense grid in action. We now offer this knowledge to any peaceful civilization that wishes to learn, Miller continued. Not as conquerors, like the Empire, but as teachers and allies. Earth's defense technology can protect worlds without destroying them. Captain Hayes moved to stand beside him. The Sentinel was never meant to be a weapon of war. It's a shield designed to protect Earth and our allies. We proved that superior technology doesn't have to mean superior destruction. The council chamber erupted in discussion. Representatives from dozens of worlds stood up, asking to form alliances with Earth. Even former Imperial worlds sought Earth's protection and guidance. In the weeks that followed, the galaxy's power structure shifted dramatically. The Empire's remaining worlds were given independence, free to choose their own paths. Many chose to ally with Earth, impressed by how humanity had handled its victory. The Sentinel became a symbol across the galaxy, not of fear, but of protection. Earth began sharing its defensive technology with trusted allies, teaching them how to build their own quantum defense grids and mirror field systems. Admiral Marcus, granted amnesty in exchange for helping with the peaceful transition, watched as his former empire transformed. "You know," he said to Commander Miller during a quiet moment, "when I first saw Earth's orbital platforms, I thought they were primitive failures. Now I understand. Everything we saw was exactly what you wanted us to see." Miller smiled. "Sometimes the best defense is letting your enemy underestimate you. Earth never wanted to rule the galaxy. We just wanted to protect ourselves and others from those who did." Captain Hayes and the Sentinel continued their patrols, but now they protected not just Earth, but a growing alliance of peaceful worlds. Other ships were built using the same technology, but the Sentinel remained special, the ship that had changed the galaxy with a single battle. In the end, it wasn't Earth's weapons that truly won the day. It was their combination of advanced technology, strategic thinking, and commitment to peace that transformed the galaxy. The Empire had laughed at Earth's weak defenses, but that laughter had led to their downfall. And now, as Earth's delegation left the council chamber that day, everyone in the galaxy understood one simple truth. Sometimes the quietest worlds hold the greatest power, and true strength lies not in the ability to destroy, but in the wisdom to know when not to.